Hi guys, I'm Yes or No, and today I'm talking about the East Coast versus the Midwest. Now I gotta admit, when I woke up this morning chanting Midwest Coast, Best Coast, I realized I was not entirely unbiased. Naturally, some of the opinions I'm gonna have here are gonna offend somebody. So let's get started now. Alright, so first things first, let's deal with the stereotype that the Midwest is commonly referred to as the Flyover States. Most people think that in the Midwest there is not that much to do. And I'll admit, I have not left my house in the last 2 weeks. But in reality, there are a plethora of things to do. For example, you could go to the lake and chill, you could go watch a movie, we have theater performances. Yeah, but I would agree with the statement that like the crux of a social scene sometimes hangs on sports. As a kid, I would go to these Wisconsin Badger football games and find like 80,000 people would also be in the stadium. So that's why I was so sorely disappointed when I went to Harvard and found that like only 5 people went to the games, and those 5 people only went because they were on the team. Like, sporting events are not the same thing on the East Coast as they are in the Midwest. In fairness to the East Coast though, I realized that their lack of interest in traditional sports may have more to do with the fact that they have so many other things to do. They have yacht clubs, boat clubs, golf clubs, you know, basically anything you could spend a lot of money on, they have. And that's the thing, right? Like, I realized on the East Coast, money makes the world go round. And there's a lot of old money on the East Coast too, like money that's passed down from generation to generation to generation. And this money usually displays itself in what they wear. For example, when I was a scrawny little kid in high school, I always thought that being preppy meant like wearing a Hollister shirt and having nice hair. But then when I became a learned Harvard student, I realized that being preppy really meant wearing Brooks Brother clothing and having salmon colored pants and having $1 million and owning a yacht. Yeah, money is not emphasized as much in the Midwest. And as long as we're talking money, you know, I gotta touch on the subject of beers. Because for most of my 21 plus life, I have thought that beers cost $6 to $7, you know, because that's what I got used to in Boston. But then I came back to Wisconsin and realized that all the beers only cost $4 a pop. Like, no wonder they're drinking like it's their day job. My goodness, if I lived here all the day, I'd practically be an alcoholic. And this one is definitely more Wisconsin specific. But if I am allowed to make a large sweeping statement about the Midwest, Midwesterners drink a lot more beer and they're a lot more unhealthy than the East Coast. So now for the East Coast diet. East Coast seafood is on fleek. I don't even know if you're allowed to use on fleek for anything other than eyebrows, but I am, because their seafood is that good. The East Coast does seafood better than almost any part of the world, Japan excluded. They have lobster this, shrimp that, like oyster whatever, and it is all good. I mean, the East Coast is where I found my favorite food in the entire world. Lobster mac and cheese. Like, if my spirit animal could be a food, that would be it. But being real, the East Coast diets are still pretty hearty. But for some reason, the East Coast stays relatively skinny. And I think this is because they walk so much, right? They have solved the problem of overeating by overwalking. It's genius. The East Coasters are a smart bunch. And I mean that literally, right? The East Coast, on the whole, seems to be very well educated. Everybody and their mother seems to be like a professor or a lawyer, or just like overall has been blessed by the touch of academia. Just smart cookies. And you know, there are many more differences between the East Coast and the Midwest, but what I want to finish on is why I am partial to the Midwest. And that can be summed up in 2 words: Midwestern Nice. So yeah, I'm yes or no. I wake up in the morning chanting Midwest Coast, Best Coast. Make sure to subscribe, and that seems to be it. Peace.